Halach ma'anya, come and learn. Whoever wants to learn about the laws of Pesach, come learn about the laws of Pesach. I will be getting back to discussion-based lives, but right now I just want to finish through this because I want to get through these. I'm recording them from my YouTube channel. Check it out. This is Oarch Chaim, Tuf Samach, 460. In a matzahs, we don't make matzah either. Akum, it's an idolater. Chayresh, someone who's a deaf mute. Shaita, someone who's mentally ill, the katan, or a minor. Vachi Isa, Bishal Sais. And it is stated by the Shalas that Lasha Akum, Isa, I Chayresh, Shaita, the katan, that if a adulterer, or a deaf mute, or someone mentally ill, or a minor, needed the dough, Glav b'nei shimor ninu. They're not someone who's capable of being watched or someone who's able to watch a dough. And it's very important on Pesach to make sure the dough does not become chametz, not become leaven. Af al gav, the Af Yisrael bardas, even if they're a knowledgeable Yisrael, a Jew, the avad ba shimor b'shas afya, and performed around the time of baking, loy nafik ba yidei chayvasai. One does not feel his obligation with it, because you have to have in mind when you're making matzah to fulfill the obligation of making matzah. The V'kach of Rav Kain Tzedek, he wrote, "Let's say sidei chayvasai b'leil rishon." In order to fulfill one's obligation on the first night, he says you should guard the matzahs. So ino yelav matzah she'alf Yisrael shemitzah. You have to have it from a Yisrael that made it in a Jew that did it with the intention of fulfilling the commandment. Ad shehei shimor l'shem mitzvah, meaning that there must be guarding for the sake of the mitzvah. V'Rav Haigain, Kasav Haigain wrote, Matzah she'afas akum b'fnei Yisrael. But if someone who's not a non-Jew went ahead and did it for Yisrael, al yidei shimor kisik kuna, there's the proper guarding, mutal Yisrael lechila. And it's permitted for Yisrael to eat it, and this gives us the ability to have machine matzahs. Machines obviously can't do things in intention. A machine does not use intention. But if a Jew watches over it, then that's considered enough intention, and that's why machine matzahs are good, even for Seder night, as long as they're watched from the time of grinding and going forward. Ubale Maisa v'Chasidim machmirin al itmos kigoynim machmirin, and the men of action and people who are pious are stringent upon themselves. Stringent like the goynim were. L'shim batzman v'ayfin, and knead themselves and they bake for themselves. Gehai damrinan ma da'arkai shel ani hu masik vishnoi ayfa. That we say that the way the poor person that he kindles and his wife bakes. So he lights the oven, and then his wife does the baking. It's a mitzvah for every single person to strive in the baking of the matzahs. And if you can, go to a matzah factory at least to watch every single year, or at least participate a little bit. That's very good. So too, the Torah's father, the Rosh, said that as well. And then he would exert himself in them, and he'd stand over the preparation. Umozraz ha'iskin bahen, and encourage those involved in them. And he would assist in arranging the dough. Vahi adam ragil leimar al kol pirurim, and a person who's accustomed regarding any crumbs shivul b'shas lisha va'aricha yehei batlin, that fall during the kneading and shaping, and they should be nullified, to make sure that there's not little scraps of dough that went uncooked anywhere. They have to be nullified before it turns into chametz, into leaven. One does not make decorated or engraved cakes for Pesach with flour. Meaning they draw the bread in the forms of animals or birds, shaping in other ways. If anything that was done to come preparation, then it does not rise, then it's permitted. So that's why we even have that comb that goes through it, that little peg wheel that goes through it to make sure that it shouldn't rise. So we call makam taif shaloi lasos alav lasos kamin tzior. And nevertheless, it's good not to delay over making a design, because the more you delay, the more the dough has an ability to rise. Again, it's hard for us to think about now when you look at our matzahs, which are crackers, but back then, matzah wasn't those crackers. Matzah used to be soft. as long as it was baked within the 18 minutes and it was used, so then that was matzah, and it didn't have any yeast in it, and it didn't have any sugar in it, and it didn't have any baking soda in it. It would just be flour and water, and then it would be rolled out, it would be kneaded and rolled out and thrown into the oven and fully baked. They can't bake anymore. But because people got strict attention to make sure that water doesn't touch it, that it should possibly be a place where it's not baked, so we go ahead and we have matzah that's crackers now, but it used to be very, very small. Because of Rav Alfa Shalai Asru Bale Batim Shainon Biki and Bitzrayim, but the Rif wrote that one only forbade householders who are not expert in designs. You have a lashes alayim, and it could come to lay over them. Aval nachmoidim mutarin, but professionals are permitted. Upirish Rabbeinu Yaina and Rabbeinu Yudron wrote Toimin Mutarin that experts are permitted afilu beloy difus, even without having a mold, if they're doing it freehand to bali batim asur afilu yeshlam difus, and regular householders, if they do have a mold, they're prohibited because they can't do it as fast. Umachrin la soisan, and they can delay with their hands. V'chein cuts of Rambam also wrote that. Zal, and of course the Torah's father Rush, he wrote Haya Noite la Eser la Koil Af Lach Soimin. He tended to forbid it even for professional bakers. Mortal Afoy's pas of a Yom Tif is permitted to bake thick bread on Yom Tif, pirush pagim gedolim, meaning large loaves. V'lo yichashinon l'toyrach, and not concerned about excessive effort. Lo yishinib Yom Tif Pesach, lo yishinib b'shar Yom Tovim. There's no difference between Yom Tif and Pesach and other festivals. Rak shala yilbosh b'Yom Tif Pesach yoyser mechiush isa achas. But one should not need on Yom Tov Pesach more than measure to make one dough batch. Because again, you make multiple dough batches at once, and you can't put it in the oven at the same time, then the problem is it's going to be sitting waiting, and it's going to turn chametz. So long as your oven can fit the batches, you could make the fresh matzah on Pesach. And again, he doesn't talk about it, but clearly this was any sort of bread that wasn't going to rise, and that was considered good on Pesach. These days, we're left mostly with the crackers. Now it is Tor or Chaim Taf Samach Aleph. This is 461. Inyan Hisei Katanor, the matter of heating an oven. Kasav Rav Nutrani, the Nutrani which was a going. Tanor Peruni Shaifin by Kol Shana, an oven in the furnace which is baked all year, mutter loy lafas by Pesach. Then you can make it with bake on Pesach. V'tapka shel cheres hisika mil mata, and when you have a clay pan that's heated from beneath, v'al gabav eno gechalim v'loy shahalaves, and on top there's no coals and there's no flame. V'oifin ba kol shana, one bakes it all year. Asr lafas by Pesach, you still can't do it on Pesach, because you're not kashering the inside of it. But if it's new, whether it's heated inside or outside, it doesn't make a difference. It's permitted. Since the fire rules from underneath, even though there's no flame that rises from on top of it, it becomes fully heated, and the bread still bakes. So it can't be kashered because the heat only comes from the bottom. But since it's new, there's no problem with chametz. There's no problem about worrying about what's going to come. What we're going to put there is going to become chametz because the heat's hot enough to bake the bread fully, to bake the matzah fully. The einoi ba lidei chumutz, and it does not become chametz. However, one must heat first, whether it's an oven or a hearth. And afterwards, fix the bread. In other words, don't put the bread in while it's preheating. We don't preheat or put the bread in and then start preheating. It has to be done when it's already preheated. The fire has to be going and it's very, very hot, and then you put the bread in. But if you fix it, the bread in there, and then you heat it, that's usher, because it's not going to get hot enough, and then that part of the bread is only going to get warm, and then it's going to become chametz, and that's it. Then we're done. Rav wrote, Klal zeh yehei biyadchem. This rule is regarding should be in your hands. That's kol samasikin tachtav, anything that's heated from beneath, ayal gabav, or on top, and afterwards the bread is put there. Einai ba lidei chimutz does not come to chametz. Ve'im advik achar kach maseg aser. But if one did the first putting it in and then put the heat, that's forbidden. So always preheat and then you put the dough in. V'hara ben yoyna kasav. The Rabbeinu wrote shetzarech lozaher shesiku hatanur sheyalchu hagacholim al pnei kulai. That one must be careful when heating the oven that the coals pass over its entire surface. The ein dai loy b'shal heves, and it's not enough for the flame alone. The kemoi shabalea al yad, because it absorbs through the gecholim, the coals. Kach pilate al yidei gecholim. So too, it also expels through the coals. And that sparks have to fly from it. It's so hot that sparks fly. Hilkach, therefore, sorry, not Hilkach. Halakach im hasiku kama pamayim kaidem pesach enoi masik. Therefore, if they heated, so it is Hilkach. Therefore, if they heated it several times before Pesach, it is not just sufficient. Ella imkain kevon lahatiroi l'tzoyrech Pesach, unless he intends to make it permissible for Pesach. Ki shema lo yihalchu gecholim al pnei kuloi kol zman shloi kevon lakach. Perhaps the coals did not pass over the entire surface, and he did not intend to do so. Ve'inoigin lahatil boy karka chadasha, and it's not the practice to place new clay. Kedei shelo yishrenu isek, that will not require new heating. Or minig yafe hu, it's a good custom like this. Matzah shenafes ad sheim parsim oisai ein chuta on the shasi menu. Excuse me. A matzah that is baked such that one breaks it, threads do not pull from it, yotzen but that he has fulfilled his obligation. Now we're talking about matzah itself. So now after it comes out of the oven, you have to make sure that when you pull it apart, there's no threads. If it's threads, that could be an indication of chametz. When you pull it apart, even if it's soft, there should be no threads. And that you have think about a really good laffa. If you have a good falafel, like a pita bread or a good laffa bread, naan, those flatbreads, when you pull it apart, there's no threads. It's cooked well, it's heated nicely, and it's still softish, but when you pull it apart, there's no threads. That's what matzah is. These days, clearly, there's no threads when we eat the crackers. Upachas mikan en yesin ba. But less than this, one does not fill his obligation. V'yotzen matzah if you al gabi karka, and one who fills his matzah by baking it on the ground, or if you ba'alfas beloy mayim, or in a pan without any water. Matzah sharui b'mayim achar afya, and with matzah soaked in water after baking, aval nish bashla achar afya ein yoytze ba afilu loy nemucha. But if he cooked it after baking it, one does not fill it, even if it did not dissolve. Kasav bal hag. This so far the Bahag says this. Im ifya al gabe karka oy al tafka nafik ba yedei chavasa. If it was baked on the ground or on a clay surface, one fills obligation with it. Vehecha deboy latano isa b'machvas b'shemen mutter, and one who wishes to fry the dough in a pan of oil, that's permitted also. Vehechi avid, and how does one do it? Because you can't put oil in the dough mixture. So how do you do it? Marteach machvas chila. So what you do is you heat up the pan first with fire. Beish with fire, until it is well heated by the flame. Afterwards, you put the dough, and then it fries in the oil. And it's permitted. So make sure that everything's heated up very, very well before you put the dough. You don't, again, no matter how you cook it, you don't put dough on something that's getting warm, getting hot. You make sure you only put the dough on something that is already hot. The fisha ein lahem penai lachametz. Therefore, should not become chametz. Aval nasan isat chila v'achar kach etziru machvas aser. And you place the dough first, and afterwards you heat the pan. It's forbidden. V'achi shada Rav Yitzchak Tzedek Reish Mr. said the same thing. Aval lachloi to isa b'roisin kaidem af yaser. To scald the dough in boiling water before baking it, also not good. It's not a bagel. You're making matzah, you're not making a bagel. The Hachi Shadar Rav Shrira, and Rav Shrira ruled, Afal Pi, Lahavdul Einoi Ba Lidei. It's even though scalding it does not make it chametz. The chalita he mayim roichsin al gav kemach, and the chalita is boiling water poured over flour. Loi shamanu bechal yoshvi tziruzeh. We have not heard of anyone who says that this is going to be permitted to do this. Elo l'chaya oil choyle al pi bekiyin, except for a woman who's giving childbirth or a sick person, according to experts. V'chein kasav Rabbeinu Chaim. And Rabbi Gain said the same thing. Matzah chaluta barisan matzahi. That's the matzah that's scalded in boiling waters can still considered matzah for them because aval rabbanon kamei imran lo yedena chalita hachi havi. But early rabbanon we did not know how to properly scald in the water that it's cooked fully. The kamacholta in tarchu lahatir lahem mizayrin be Chalita of the law Yatiru, and many sick people and people who were in labor obtained permission to put barley water via scalding, but is not permitted. My minute. I go in it. I go in him. El Chaylesh. Excuse me. I go eine mel al khayla shehok she khaloy al pi rifim. The item permitted only certainly people that a physician will say that he needs to eat very soft matzah or only can eat this is what he can eat. And you have to know how to do it. Matzah shenefas im chametz betanor, matzah that was baked the chametz in the oven. Kasar Rabbeinu Tam, shemuter Rabbeinu Tam said it should be fine. For such aroma, we did not find that it prohibits all bread. And some are forbidden if they touch one another. That is similar to hot bread in an open barrel. Well, das avirush, and according to the Torah's father, the Rush, the Shari permits it afilu matzah shenimsa ba chita bekuya, who permits even matzah that with a split grain and wheat found. Yirei dahachi nami shari. It would appear here too that is permitted. So we can't give someone who is sick, we can't give that person things that are chametz. But there are ways to make softer matzah, and we could do that so long as we're very careful. We know that it's not going to become chametz. These days, I think what we do is we just give regular matzah, and then we take the matzah after it's made. Then we could soak it in water to soften it for the people who need. Then they can digest it. We don't do any sort of softening before it's baked. We're very careful because we're not experts in knowing exactly what's the standard about when it's going to be chametz, when it's not going to be chametz. So just better to just make it to the thin, flat ones and then deal with it afterwards. May peiros ein machmitzin. Fruit juices do not cause any leavening in dough. And there are many opinions regarding the matter. Rashi says one is not liable for kares for its leavening, but it's really considered inferior chametz, and therefore it's not really allowed. And even fruit juice alone is forbidden to knead. Rav Alphys, and according to the Rif, that even if fruit juice is mixed with water, it's permitted to knead from the first night and onward. But some say it's prohibited lolosh b'mei peiros in b'mayim with water. Af mileil rishon ve'elech for the first night and on. Okay, we were of yesh. So now we're talking about kneading dough with fruit juices. So it's and you can't. It's forbidden to knead with fruit juice together with water, even the first night and onward. Aval kitov shemekate pahen isa b'shas. Arichas matirin belel rishon ve'elech, but moistening applications, where one smooths the dough with them at the time of shaping, is permitted from the first night onward. In other words, as you're working the dough, to use a little bit of moisture to work the dough, that's fine. V'ri perish, demai peris, b'lay mayim ein machmitzin klal, and he says that the fruit juices without water does not cause leavening at all. And you could knead it from the first night onwards. Aval, Beleil, Rishon, Visheni, but the first 2 nights, Ein Yotzim Behem Yidei Chavos HaMatzah. You're not going to be considered, you're fulfilling your obligation for matzah if you make the matzah with the fruit juices. The Havile Matzah Shira, because that's considered rich matzah. Umei Beitzim, and regarding egg liquid, Haya Mistapek Rashi, Imach Mitzin, and Rashi is uncertain whether it causes leavening. V'Rabbeinu Tam Haya Mater, Rabbeinu Tam says it's fine. V'Zeheskim Avi Rosh, and the Rosh said also fine. Aval Peiros, Imayim Havi Chametz, but fruit juices with water will make a Chametz, Nuksha, meaning a lesser type of Chametz. Ve'ein by Karas, if there's no Karas, but rabbinically it's prohibited. Aval Mahamer Chametz Yotzer Mishar Issa, and it causes leavening more quickly than other dough. Hilkach ein lalosh bahem, if we don't need with them. The im lahem bahem Pesach the bahag Rabbi Gamliel the Amar Yisaref Miyad, and one did need with them, so the bahag ruled like Rabbi Gamliel in the Gemara, who said it was as he burnt immediately. The Charitzkias and the Haritzkias and the Ritzkias Pasak Chacham. He rules like the Chamim the Amrei Yefa Miyad, that it should have to be baked immediately. The Zeh Hiskim Avirash. The Rosh said also has to be baked immediately. The Kol Mashkim and Hayu Mechlal Me Peiros, and all the liquids that are included in the category of fruit juice. Hilka chita shenimsais b'dvash oy b'yayin v'choymetz mutter. Therefore, wheat found in honey or in wine vinegar is still permitted. Ubavad shaloi nisrach b'hem mayim. And again, I'm talking about wine, even the one we have these days. We the wine back then before diluted, when it's like pure, like wine. So I guess even these days, if it's made just with grapes, with no water additives, then that's the wine that's talking about. There's no water at all mixed into them. I found that's written regarding moist wheat grain that's found with salt, it could cause leaven. It could cause leaven. It could make it chametz. Ki hamelech misayliad amayim hu einoi bechlal mepeiros, because the salt drives out the water and it's not considered fruit juice anymore. But this does not seem correct to me. We got to look at the science. The harsharinam mishcha umalcha, they permit a mixture with oil and with salt. So alma de meimela chavi b'chlal meiperes. Therefore, we see the salt water included in the fruit juices. The same thing. It also does not make chametz. Now we're up to tough. Samach Beis. Samach Gimel. Yes. Mutter, we're almost finished. Mutter l'chareich beis shabalim b'yachad. It's permitted to roast 2 stalks together. V'lechashina and shema yetsa maya miyachas leharvasav v'chametz. We're not concerned that liquid will come out of one and cause the other one to become chametz. The havele me peiros ve'enoi machmitzan, and it's considered fruit juice, and fruit juice does not cause chametz. Hilchak, therefore, v'stikab shehu tavshel ha'osu mishemen umelach im kemach shari. Therefore, this dish that's made with a mixture of oil and salt with flour, called vatika, that's permitted. So basically, technically, flour could be mixed with oil, and flour could be mixed with wine, and flour could be mixed with fruit juices, and actually stay there over Pesach and not be a problem, because we say it doesn't cause chametz. I think these days probably people are more concerned with it, but Ikar Halacha, according to the Gemara, this is what we're talking about, and this is what the Torah is bringing. But if it was made with water and salt flour, it is permitted. One may not thicken cooked dishes with flour. Meaning that one places flour into food to thicken it. Whether it's the flours first, the vinegars first. That even if we were talking with aged flour, that was flour made by roasted grain in a dried oven. In other words, you roast the grain before you grind it in the oven. Ve'ein machmitzin, and it cannot become leaven because once it's roasted, even if you grind the flour, it'll become leaven again. We always say after it's fully cooked, it can become chametz, which is why matzah could be dipped in water on Pesach, because once it's cooked, it cannot become chametz. You could actually just dip matzah, leave it there for overnight, and even take the matzah and eat it. It's not a problem. You make matzah brai, you make other things with matzah, because it can't chametz afterwards. I know there are those that are stringent about it, but the bottom line is that technically that's what the halacha is. Ve'in machmitzin, and it does not become chametz. Afal became usher, but still, it's forbidden to use dried out grain, grind into flour, and then to mix it with water, because we're afraid, either A, we're afraid it wasn't fully roasted and it's not dried out and it could become chametz, or we're afraid that a person might forget between this flour and that flour, and then bake matzah with other flour and leave it just like you left it with the roasted flour, and then you get mixed up, and then all of a sudden you're making chametz in your house, and that's a problem. And the problem with chametz, with leaven on Pesach, is that it's karis. The soul gets cut off. Aval b'matzah afiyoi v'utchuna mutter. But baked and ground matzah, that is permitted. So in other words, once you bake it and then you grump the matzah, you can do whatever you want with it. You can take matzah meal and do whatever you want with it. You want to make cakes, you want to make breads if you can, you want to make knedlach, it's completely permitted. We're not concerned that we won't make confused with regular flour. Right, so we know that it's not going to chametz, and why won't we are afraid that someone's going to confuse with regular flour? Just like lentils and other legumes are permitted, their flours are permitted to grind up because it cannot become chametz. The rif, the Chaim Avi and also the Torah's father Rush, Kosfu, that stama leheter b'matzah fuye, that generally would permit with baked matzahs. Ubegemara ka'amar da'afilo b'matzah fuye aser. But the Gemara says that even with baked matzah it is forbidden. Heicha de'ika avdei shemazilzlin b'mitzvahs, where there are servants who treat the mitzvah slightly. Or similar cases where there's concern that one might come and permit even something regular flour. So let's just talk about the last part of that. So a person could take matzah, grind it up, and use it. The concern the Gemara had with when you had baked matzah, and then dealing with it, is that people are going to take the matzah, the mitzvah lightly, and then you get confused. But so long as we know that what we're doing is this is matzah meal and this is not grain, then there's no issues whatsoever. This next one is very, very short. Tuf Samach Daled 464. Chardol, mustard, Armine Tigal Shiesh Behem Mayim, that mustard, other types of dips that contain water. Ein it nice and behem kamach. We did not put flour into them. Now, you'll notice that mustard is not usually found in the Pesach aisle because mustard is considered kitnius. Again, Tor did not hold of kitnius, and the early Ashkenaz minhag was not to be concerned with kitnius. Kitnius problems, legumes, etc., only became an issue after the Black Death, the plague, in the early 1300s. And in the late 1300s, Maril, he said that kitnius is something that we should be concerned with. And after that, it became a custom. People took it on. Svardim, I think, still do not take it on. I think Mizrachim also did not take it on. Anyone from the Ashkenaz European communities, they all took it on. Early Ashkenaz did not have it, but then again, it developed later in Ashkenaz, and it became a widespread custom. But I will say this, that corn and peanuts is not considered kitnius. I know people like to go ahead and move things in to the same category, and then to say that the peanuts and corn is also kitnius. That's how I think the soda is corn syrup, but corn technically is not kitnius because when the gezerah, when the decree for kitnius came about in the 1300s, they had no idea what corn was. They had no idea what peanuts were. Those things were only American products, and therefore they could not possibly have included them. And when a rabbinical decree, a post-rabbinical decree, a post-Talmudic rabbinical decree comes into place, we don't add guards around a post-Talmudic rabbinical decree. And this is a post-Talmudic rabbinical decree. So we don't add anything more than the decree itself. And the decree was only on the existing kitnius, and not for any kitnius they did not know. And therefore, corn and corn and peanuts are not part of that at all. Now, more Ashkenazim are going back to the Torah, the original minhag, and they're going and they're enjoying kitnius on Pesach because for two reasons. Number one is the problem with kitnius is confusing the grains of kidney, of legumes, when they ground up to be similar to flour and thinking that if that flour is good, then this flour is good. And the second thing is a lot of that grew wild or grew near grains, and their flour get mixed up with other flour, and if you're not concerned that kitnius could become chametz, so you're not concerned if it gets wet, but then if it has wheat grain or barley grain or spelt grain in it, that could become chametz, and that could ruin everything. These days, when they're grown very separately, you basically have, you can have kitnius and legumes that are grown very separately, and there's no concern whatsoever that any wheat, barley, spelt, rye, any of the grains got mixed in with it. And we know that, by the way, everything's packaged now that's either kosher Passover, not kosher Passover, and this is saying this is legume. These are chickpeas, and it's not being used for flour, and they're selling whole chickpeas, and we know that they are regular chickpeas with no flour. Then it's kosher for Passover, and people are now going back to that, even though there's been a custom for many, many years, and the point is always to go back to keep the customs of our forefathers. But anyway, the Torah, obviously, early on, there was no custom. So he's talking about mustard. Anyway, I just made a very, very short piece, very long. But anyway, and if one did put into mustard, he should eat it immediately, and not let it sit, lest it become chametz. Because mustard is very sharp, so mustard mixed with water and grain could make the chametz much faster. But the other types of dips, they're not sharp like mustard. Vaday hechmetz, considered like leavening. V'tzarech l'sarfai, and it must be burnt.